let's talk about Bob. Bob was the person that started the Area 51 um, sensation back in '89. Uh, he had claimed to be a an employee for the Office of the Navy, uh, doing work on propulsion, re actually propulsion on alien spaceships that were supposed to be in an area called S4. It was a subset of Area 51,
Hmm.
about 15 miles west, I think he said, of the site. He had come up with a lot of claims um, that started this, really, the UFOlogy. He's kind of like the father of it. The only unfortunate thing about it is there's always been thought of, okay, well, is he telling the truth or isn't he telling the truth? And it's kind of split 50-50. Now, the interesting thing, as you and I know, is that Ken Knapp, or not Ken, George Knapp, um, the one that I started having issues with back in the with the Dennis Martin case when he was doing that Midnight in the Desert.
Oh yeah, one
Um,
of these coast to coast guys. Yep.
the coast to coast guy, yeah. Well, Bob Lazar was his breakthrough into the big time. He was merely a an anchor man for Channel 8, KS, what is it, KLAS TV out in I think out in the Nevada area. He was just an anchor man. The Bob Lazar case is actually kind of what sprung him into
Hmm.
the limelight. And I consider, after listening to a lot of his stuff, I consider him a used car salesman. He's just,
Well, that's actually kind of a nice description of him because I've heard you refer to people in much more
well,
vocal terms.
well, but, and you see, I don't think he actually believed everything Bob Lazar was saying, but I think
Hmm.
because it elevated his career.
Hmm.
Can you imagine him coming back and saying, "Oh, I just found out the guy was not what he says he was." So,
Was a fraud, yeah.
right. So he had to stand by, the case himself. What do we know about Bob Lazar? Well, we know most of the primary points that the UFOologists give him credit for. He really hasn't said anything that nobody else knew. I mean, there's been a lot of sensational claims about things that he said he saw, but his first claim was that, now, he graduated. Well, let's just go over his education first. From '72 to '76, he was in high school in Westbury, New York. Okay, he had an interest in chemistry. He ranked 261 out of 369 students, which is very low. So remember, with that in mind, he wouldn't have had enough. His grade level wouldn't have been high enough for him to get into either. He said he went to MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah, I doubt that. That's like me getting into MIT.
Right, right. And then he said he was also in what is it, Caltech,
Yeah, that's another top
right?
college
So
and university in the country.
so and then in '78, let me just see. I got to read. There's so much stuff here. He went to a college called Pacifica, which, and he says he got a bachelor's degree. Okay. Um, as far as any of my research is done, I did that as this is a cop, not as a. I don't care about UFOs. I mean, I do believe that there are probably other, people out there, but that's not my thing, you know.
You're more like, yeah, you want to see the proof of it. You're open to the idea.
I mean, yeah, but he claims so. He went to this Pacifica University, and he got a bachelor's degree in physics and electrical tech, which I've never heard of that type of degree before, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Then after he went to college at Pacifica, then he goes to a Pierce Junior College, which kind of seemed to be backwards. You would normally go to junior college first, and then you.
I took I took 2 junior college classes in law enforcement after graduating, but I wasn't trying to get a degree.
Right. So
You know.
he went for that for physics.
Okay.
Then he says he gets in '82 he gets a master's degree in physics from MIT.
Okay.
'85 he gets a master's degree from Caltech for I believe it was electrical engineering. But here's the problem: Caltech never had an electronics or an electronic engineering syllabus. Okay, now, so his first bachelor's degree he got in '78. He got a master's in '82. He got a master's in '85. That is not, from a timeline, that is not possible, because to get a master's degree is generally a year to 3 years, 32 to 36 credits. How are we going to, in a lapse of, let me see, 7 years, get two master's degree and a bachelor's degree? Now, here's where the real kicker comes in. He can't. The school has no record of him being there. Now, if you graduate, you get a diploma. You keep your diploma at the house. He has no diplomas. He's not in any of the yearbooks. To all of these schools, he doesn't exist, but he says he went to all of them, but he doesn't exist. So, I mean, they would know if the government went to a school and wiped his records out, which they physically probably couldn't, because back in that time, everything was handwritten or typed. So it would be almost impossible to do that. So already I'm starting to get my, yeah, okay, maybes. Now his Social Security is even more interesting. His Social Security card starts with 068. So there was a lot of controversy about that, because he says he was born in Coral Gables, Florida in '59. 068 would not have been a Social Security card he got. But when they tracked it down, he got that card in '74 in New York. And this is where will make sense. Not much sense, but his father, Albert, and his mother, Phyllis, he has Phyllis down as his natural mother. However, the Nevada Parole Commission says that he wasn't born in New York. He was actually adopted. So he was originally given another name and another Social Security number, but he wouldn't have known that. He wouldn't have known, they wouldn't have released his real name to him, nor would they have released his Social Security number to him. Because when you're born, you get a Social Security number. So it kind of jives why he got it, why so late, who knows, but here again, you know, we're going through a lot of inconsistencies with him. Let me see. Then his criminal history, which is even interesting. I've
heard about his criminal history. I looked up some stuff about him before this broadcast.
One interesting thing is he has a critic, Stanton Friedman, who says that he couldn't have got a government clearance because of his felony arrest in 1990. But you have to remember, Lazar said he worked at the base 88 to 89. So the felony came on thereafter. So that's kind of a, that could have just been a kind of an oops, you know. I do have other stuff here. I just got to take a quick look with the readers on here. Now, he reported that he had worked for Los, prior to going to this area S4, he had worked for Los Alamos Laboratories. Okay. And he says he can prove it because his name was in a phone book in the research facilities. Well, at that time, what happened is they would put subcontractors in the phone book as well. And if you look next to him, and this is another one of these big ahas, this is Jeremy Corbell. Oh, look, his name's in a telephone book. Yeah, who gives a shit? Because it says MK right next to it, which meant he worked for Kirk Myers Subcontracting. He never actually worked for Los Alamos. He was a subcontractor that worked there. And if you go far back and take his full social security number and the amount that the Office of the Navy had paid him was $1,000. That's 1 week's pay. So technically, if you, depends on whose variation of the story is, he either worked there from 7 days as a subcontractor to possibly 49. That's it. So for him to have access to all of this information, then again, if you can't substantiate any of your education, they're not just going to let you walk on a damn military base, especially ones that got freaking spacecraft. I mean, I don't know who believes that one, but
yeah,
it's just, there's just so much now. I got.
You want to tell us some stuff about his criminal background? I mean, sorry, let me repeat that again. Do you want to tell us something about his criminal background?
Well, his criminal background is kind of interesting because he was arrested back in '90 for basically promoting prostitution.
I read about that. That's crazy.
Pandering. So, right then and there, that kind of gives you a little subset of what this guy's about. Now, he had claimed that the FBI, him and Corbell, this Jeremy Corbell, who just happened to do a Netflix movie on him, and he's so convinced that this guy is real.
I've heard this name too. Yeah.
I don't know how Corbell investigates things, but between him and that other one, what the hell's his name, Ronan or whatever, what is? Between him, Logan, and Knapp, I mean, I don't know where they've learned their investigative skills, but maybe you need to polish up a little bit on them. Bob Lazar, and I'm just kind of throwing this in first, says that his house and home were raided twice by the FBI. Okay, not true, because let me get a little background on warrants. When a search warrant's done, a search warrant will specifically identify the building, structures, or vehicles that are to be searched. In the warrant, it will say what they're searching for. That's not to say that if they see something in plain view that's criminal, they can't seize it. However, there's specific things. Now, Corbell and all of these other ones, it's element 115, Well, no, not really, because I had access to all of the two warrants. The first warrant was actually served on United Nuclear back in 2003, and it was for transportation of hazardous material over state lines. That's why the FBI was involved. It had nothing to do with element 115. And if anybody knows anything about element 115, its lifespan, because it's synthetically made, is almost at the max 220 milliseconds. So even if you did steal some from this spaceship, it would have disintegrated before you got into your pocket. But we'll get down there a little farther. So the 2003 raid was on his business for because they were transporting hazardous materials over, selling it and shipping it over the line. The one that was done in 2016, oh, they're looking for element 115. No, they weren't. They were investigating a homicide because your company sold a chemical. I gotta look at my glasses and I can't pronounce it right, but thallium sulfate. And you see, what they don't realize is I have access to things that they don't have access to. It was
Yeah,
a
we learned that pretty much with the Joan Rich case, how you
right.
managed to make a phone call and you get the whole case file,
It was
5,000 pages of it.
it was a warrant served for the homicide of Janelle Streusel, case number 15-002978. Cause of death, cardiac arrest and respiratory failure due to thallium toxicity, which basically means that the crap that he sold, somebody used to kill somebody with. So nobody was looking for element 115, and he made that up, and I'll explain later why he made that up and how easy it would have been to be made up. But these were search warrants based on his sales of hazardous material over state lines. And the last one happened to incur a homicide. And how these researchers can't put two and two together, thank Christ they're not cops. They're better off selling their used cars, but do not become a cop because Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, right? So now it says in all of these things that, well, he passed 2 lie detector tests. Yeah, but he failed several others. It's a failure to tell you about, So,
Okay.
And I listened to his interviews, and I'll tell you, just like Dave Pilatus, they had me fighting at the hook a little bit until I started researching it. And because I have a little bit of a science background, yeah, maybe in archaeology, but in anthropology, but I still have somewhat of a background, so I kind of can put it together, I listened to him. If he had committed a homicide, he wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes in a room with me. You see, here's the problem. These UFOologists and UFO believers and this and that are looking so hard to find something that they'll believe anything.
Well, what do you think about Roswell? I mean, in New Mexico.
Yeah,
Balloon, was that experimental craft, and those were just
that's
mannequins?
All, no, that's all horse crap. That
Okay.
was a system we were developing, an attempt to use to extract information from Russia. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I saw the debris. There was nothing extraterrestrial about it. It had a wooden dowel in it. I mean, unless they're up there making wooden dowels on a Martian lathe, nothing for nothing. People just don't want to realize. And here's a good one, right? You had Project Blue Book that ran from 52 to 9, give or take, about 69. And then you had one before that ended in 49, and that one started in 47. You have over 12,000 sightings, right? No crop circles. Some dude in England in 1966 sees a swirling mark in a field that's down by a stream where they had a lot of those little
Crop circles.
Now there's crop circles all over. So how come in the 2 decades where there were all these sightings, you didn't see a damn crop circle, and all of a sudden you see a crop circle? You know why? Because this is as much crap is their Area 51.
So, Mike, I guess from now on, instead of calling them crop circles, you'll be calling them crap circles, right?
Well, they could be either crap circle. You know what they are? They're just like Loch Ness, and they're just like Bigfoot. Everybody's making money on them.
It's the name of the game.
And that's all it's about. Just like Corbell in his new movie, that's money. Ken Knapp, George Knapp, he didn't. I don't think he really believes that whole stuff. And I was surprised because I was watching Corbell and I was watching George Knapp in his office. Dude, get a maid. mean, God forbid, how do you not walk around that place without killing yourself?
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
But